Thank you so much for coming on today, Case. It's really nice to have someone from such a varied background. I know when I invited you on initially, you were a little bit hesitant because you're not necessarily a designer, but even though you're sort of in the space. But I mentioned, I always really interested in having people from a range of different backgrounds, different countries, and different careers. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Great to be here. Yeah, so I managed the design firm for like 5.5 years. That was Well Design in Taiwan. So it's a Dutch company, and I opened their branch in Taiwan. And for the last 20 or so years, I've been running Titoma, time to market. And we do integrated product development and manufacturing. So it's the whole bunch, so to say.
Yeah, well, I had a look at your work history, and you started off in like a business background, is that right? And then you've moved sort of into manufacturing industry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So basically, I started as the sales rep for a Dutch design company, and my mother actually gave me the job because she read in the newspaper that my Dutch boss was saying, yeah, all this production, it's all going to Taiwan these days. So we
Mm.
as designers, we should be there where the action is. We should open an office in Taiwan. And so the next time I was there, I gave him a call and I could come the next morning and he gave me a stack of catalogs and here, go and sell design.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
And
funny from our, in Australia as well, like a lot of businesses sort of are still new-ish to design, like they don't necessarily, it's not as mature the market versus, America and Europe and places like that. So quite regularly we're sort of selling design to some degree in Australia. We're trying to convince these big businesses of the value of design. So yeah, I suppose we have a bit of experience with that as well. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and so I was selling to companies that made scanners and computers, Mytek and Plastek and Acer, those kind of companies in Taiwan.
Mm.
And yeah, was very interesting. And first it was just me, and then discovered it was actually good to have actual designers in Taiwan working directly with the companies because
Mm.
yeah, a good live face to face is always useful, especially if you're discussing prototypes and stuff. And so then we slowly grew an office with designers and mechanical engineers, and yeah, did quite well. We
Yeah.
uh, we eventually we designed one of the world's first tablets. This is a long time ago. This is when there was still a show called Comdex. We won the Best of Comdex award, and yeah, so we did some really cool things, and I really learned to appreciate working with the Taiwanese factories.
Mm.
Yeah, they really know how to get their stuff done. But they can use a bit of help on the design side now and then.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And
great. What difficulties did you have initially? Like obviously you're moving to Taiwan. I'm guessing you didn't know the language initially, and that would have been a bit of a challenge in the early years.
yeah. So I did have to learn Chinese,
Mm.
and but that's actually what I was going there for.
Yeah,
So
okay.
and I did 9 months full time, and then about 3 years. At that time, it wasn't possible to get a work permit if you didn't have 2 years of work experience, and I
Mm.
had none. So I registered as a student, and I stayed a student for 3.5 years to as my reason for being in the country.
Oh
But
well.
eventually, I became legitimate. I was no longer a illegal alien, so to say.
Oh, there you go.
But one of the difficulties working with the Taiwanese companies is that they are really yeah, you come to me, you tell me what you need, and I'll make it for you.
Mm.
And so doing design for them was they didn't have much of an opinion on that. Like,
Yeah.
do you want to design for the European market? Yes. Or the American market? Yes. Uh, or do you more Japanese? Yes. And so that they're open to all of that because they
Mm.
want to sell as much as they can, right?
Yeah.
And then the famous design thing is design for everyone is design for no one. So
Exactly.
that was a bit hard to navigate sometimes. And uh, yeah, we the way they work, it's called ODM, Original Design Manufacturing. And what they normally do is they design a laptop and then they go and sit at their booth on a trade show and then they say, "Hey, look, it's a laptop and it works." And then they work for Mr. Siemens or Mr. HP or Mr. Toshiba to come and say, "Oh, that's a great laptop and it's very affordable,
Mm,
but it doesn't look quite right. So please make it more HP." But so yeah, we worked with them to a general looks great design, but it wasn't as specific. And one thing that computer cases we also worked on a lot, and
mm,
um, y- like in cars, you really can express your identity with a car,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
You're driving a truck or a Jeep, or you're driving a Lamborghini, or you're more of a value-oriented and Dacia, or more endurable and more green, and maybe Tesla. And
Mm,
actually, so cars are really an expression of who you are. But a PC case, it was hard for people to get some sort of a differentiation into that, even though there's lots of PCs. But then we worked with Astro Design from San
mm.
Francisco, and they started Alienware.
Yeah.
So really a PC case, really specifically for one target group with a really interesting design.
I feel like
And
there has been quite a lot of like recent development in PC cases as well. Like I remember I used to like when I was in high school I used to build my own PCs and you know the early ones like they all looked exactly the same. Like it was pretty much just a black box with a side panel. They all had pretty similar lighting. And then these days like even my computer right now it's got like the two glass panels on the side and then you've got like the wood grain PCs now and like you know there's and then you got like all sorts of different like you know built on wall PCs. Like I feel like it has still gone a long way even in like such a limited market. Yeah.
well, it's not a limited market. I
Not
mean,
limited, but like, you know, restrictive. I don't know, a little bit restrictive, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah, well, we even worked on like Intel was going to come out with a new mini PC form factor, like
Mm,
really small, and then we were asked to come up with weird shapes, like what can you do with such a small form factor?
mm,
Uh, and we came up with some really creative designs, sort of to showcase the possibilities that you get with a much compactor motherboard.
mm,
So that was interesting. But then Intel decided to can that particular motherboard spec. So
mm.
that was unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, you were mentioning before, like the idea that, you know, these companies, they bring out a product and, you know, these, well, specifically Taiwanese manufacturers, they bring out a product and it might not necessarily be under their brand and they'll sort of sell that product to a big brand to put under their brand. Is that a common occurrence with consumer electronics, like especially with the big brands? Because I would always imagine that, for example, HP, they would just have internal design firms and, you know, manufacturers that they follow that specifically produce their products, or is it usually they rebrand other companies' products?
Well, like designing a laptop from scratch
Mm,
is an awful lot of work.
yeah.
And so in Taiwan, you have a firm like Compal, you've never heard of, but they work for like 9 out of the 10 big brands of laptop makers,
Mm, yeah.
which is quite interesting. And so they do have this huge strong knowledge of design of that specific machine. For example, we had a mechanical engineer in our Taipei office, and a laptop is divided in top screen and then keyboard and the bottom, and they
Mm,
call it A, B, C, D.
Yep.
And when he was working for Asus, his job was B. He did bezels for screens, and that was his job for 2 years.
Mm.
And every 3 months there was a new bezel that needed to be designed, and he did another bezel. So they're really focused on that specific product, and so they get really good at it.
Mm. Yeah.
And that was also a bit the reason for me to start then Titoma, basically as an interface between all these ODM factories and Western clients
Mm.
to coordinate getting a nicer industrial design on the outside and yeah, interact with the factories and get the software and the whole manual, well, the project management, so to say.
Mm. Okay.
And that worked. But it turned out to be very slow because yeah, we started out as a small company and our clients were not HP. And so then the ODM factories they have their list of their top 10 customers and you're number 12 or so because
Mm.
you're a new product, a new client uh, trying to make a product that is a bit weird. It's not your standard whatever they make,
Mm.
but more difficult and lots of questions and so quite demanding. And so we were pretty low on their list of priorities.
Mm.
So that meant that we had to wait a long time, and that got very frustrating.
Mm.
To be honest, it wasn't very time to market also.
Mm. Yeah.
So then we started to hire our own engineers in Taiwan to really do the design in house. And um, and then I'm talking more about the electronic and the mechanical design because that's yeah really where a lot of our clients they're often more B2B, business to
Mm.
business.
Yep.
So um, like you're saying, you guys are also in the fencing business. It's still yeah design there is not they just want to get a good product out
Mm.
and design was not top of their requirements. Like if you are in a very mature category like cars or PC cases, then you really need to find a way to distinguish yourself.
Mm.
Uh, but if you are the first um, dog feeder with built-in webcam in the world,
Mm.
then you still want it to look nice and sleek. But yeah, you're not gonna go through endless design iterations. You just focus more on getting it to work properly and not fail. That is that is a
Yeah.
very important getting the product from one unit that works in your lab to 10,000 that don't
Mm.
fail.
Yeah.
That
Needs to be very consistent. Mm.
yeah. Well, and in manufacturing, very manufacturable.
Mm.
For example, um, yeah, a long time ago, one of the first products of Apple were these round, um, translucent orange PC monitors,
Mm.
and those were really hard to manufacture. Like they had 50% yield loss or something.
Really?
Uh,
Wow.
and and there we spoke with tool makers who worked on that project, and they said, well, the engineers of I think it was Frog, they said, this is the design, and you cannot change anything. This is the design, and yeah, and then they got yield loss. They 50% of the products that came out of the injection molds, they
Mm.
were no good. which makes everything really expensive, which creates a lot of delays in production.
Mm,
So that dialogue between the mold maker and the designers, I think, is really important. And of course, both sides have their point of view. The designer has the design intent, and this is what needs to be realized.
mm,
But intent is the word to use. It needs like this is what I want to achieve,
mm,
but it should not be cast in iron because yeah, there's practical considerations, right? If you want to design a cube like with 90 degrees angles,
mm,
uh, a perfect cube is really expensive to make because then you need sliders to open it up in the mold, and that makes it a lot more expensive. The cheapest way, the cheapest shape to make is like say a Big Mac box that has a lot of draft angles,
mm.
so it gets out of the mold very easily.
Yeah.
Um, and so there is that, like, do you want it to be perfect or do you want it to be affordable? And those are
Mm.
the kind of decisions and discussions that you really need to have. And
I suppose
there,
that's why it's important to have that relationship with the manufacturer where you can just sort of bounce ideas off them instead of, going too far down the design process and then, then engaging them at the end. It's better to sort of have them early on so you can, work
yeah,
through issues. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And not to be too stringent about it, like it must be like this, because
mm,
and every mold maker and every factory is a little bit different. Some mold makers they have traumas about like, oh, I tried it this way 7 years ago, and it took us 14 months to get that right until the
mm,
client finally approved it. So we're never gonna do that again.
mm,
So and so they all have their preferences and you need to work with that. So one of the big learnings I think over the years is that there is no universal design for manufacturing. There is design for Bob's factory and Bob's mold maker and Bob's cable tree maker and Bob's you need a lot of components obviously, and it's that whole supply chain that comes with a factory that is important. And so you really need to gear your design for that, and that's why, yeah, indeed, getting getting your manufacturer involved early on in the process
mm.
is so important.
As well, I
Mm.
suppose it's more about like also knowing the limitations of your factory and working with them a little bit. Like for example, we have a couple of factories we work with, like for injection molding, and like we know they're not design people. They're just really good at injection molding. Do you know what I mean? So like we don't put too much pressure on them to come to solve the design problems, if you know what I mean. We try to give them as little pressure as possible, and then sort of focus more on the design on our end, and then sort of just sort of sense check it a bit with them because they have the manufacturing knowledge. But like yeah, sort of like know their limitations, know your limitations instead of try to work against them. Mm,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And of course we do the complete design now, and then that means in an electronic product, like your bill of materials, your BOM, that is like 80% of the cost of an electronic product
mm,
often. And so finding the right components to design around then becomes really important because of, yeah, 80% of your price is dictated by the price of your components. You really need to select those components very carefully.
mm,
And that's a mistake that I see with a lot of designers in the West, that they for example, I talked with a design house in Amsterdam, and they they look on the internet, they find a nice camera module that has really good quality and the exact right specs, And then they start developing their electronics around it, and they spend 9 months to optimize all the firmware so that the image comes out just right.
Mm,
And then they take their whole design package to a factory in China or in Taiwan or in wherever. And then the factory says, yeah, we cannot get this module here. It's really expensive. If we import it from Japan, there's 30% import tax.
mm,
But we have this module that is a third the price. So if you want an affordable product, we recommend you use this module. Oh,
mm,
but then we spend 9 months to tweak carefully our firmware.
mm,
Is that
Um,
something that occurs quite a lot?
well, it depends on what kind of product or component. Like with cameras, there is a big variance in specs and in pricing.
Yeah.
And one of the issues is, but you have all sorts of sensors, saltwater sensors or
Mm.
CO2 sensors can also be quite expensive. Um, or no more particle sensors, they are really expensive. And so that kind of a component can really dictate your overall product cost. So then you really need to, at the very beginning of your design, you need to look at the architecture. What are my key components? What are my cost drivers? And then source something, yeah, the best value for money. And the difficulty is that a lot of the good value for money components from Asia are not on DigiKey.
mm,
So that makes it a lot harder. And why? Because a camera manufacturer in China, they like to sell 100,000 camera modules per month to 7 different factories or in China.
mm,
And they have only 7 people they need to deal with, and they just ship their modules, go, 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 and that's it. And if you have one design team from Oklahoma or from Amsterdam asking them for 2 samples, and then asking them questions for months about how to integrate that camera with the right firmware and all that. That they don't like that, and they don't have the language skills, and so they just don't put
mm.
their camera modules on DigiKey. So that's one of the tricky bits in designing electronics.
How do you ensure the quality of the modules you use? Like, obviously, there would be a lot of similar looking products online. How do you sort of know that the internal components of that specific module is going to be up to scratch?
We need to test it. You really need to test it. Like the spec sheets, they can promise you everything, but you need to really test it. The use of that particular module in your particular configuration, like with your voltage and amperage on the board, and so you really need to start working with a proof of concept, like a partial prototype that for testing out that particular module.
Mm,
Mm.
Like we're about to test a time of flight sensor, and then we just rig up like a testing jig to test. It needs to very accurately test a distance, like the light goes whoop and back, so it measures the time of the flight. And we're gonna source 10 different modules, and then just test out, and then we really know who has the best performance and what is the prices, and then you can make the appropriate compromise.
mm,
Mm.
okay.
I noticed on your LinkedIn you've mentioned to get to the market fast, you need to avoid doing things twice. Can you just take us a little bit more into that and explain your process in that process, in doing that, sorry?
Um, yeah, well, originally our company is called Time to Market, Titoma, and so really want to go as fast as possible.
Mm,
But for example, we did one product that was yeah, it was quite intricate with it had it was like an old-fashioned alarm clock, and it had like tuk 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 these flaps. You used to have them on stations where you see prrrr.
Yeah.
And so we made a notification device with those flaps. But the client wanted to have 60 flaps per roll, which was really dense because normally it's only 10 flaps per roll.
mm,
Um, and so we started designing that and testing that, and um, there were yeah, it was hard to get that right because
mm,
um, yeah, we're getting a bit technical, but to fit all these flaps on a wheel, you need 60 holes with the little pins to fit into, and then one flap has tiny little parts coming out, and to fit all that 60 flaps on one reel means you had need really thin flaps,
mm,
and the connection points become really tiny, and that causes problems.
Mm.
And uh, and yeah, we tested and we said, yeah, but we were seeing issues. I really think we need to solve this. And so then we had to go through a different material that was twice as expensive, but
mm,
harder, so that the little connection points would not break as easy. So already there were 7 digits and 60 flaps per digit, and now all the flaps become twice as expensive. So that was a huge cost increase for the client.
mm,
And and still there were still issues, and we would like to test more and improve more, but the client was a startup and they really had to go to market, and so they just went because yeah, investors, and we have a sales team of 6 people sitting here. They need to sell. We have employed them already, and so they went to market, and so there were problems, and there were returns higher than you would have liked, and that really caused problems. And they said, yeah, looking back, we were thinking, well, we want to do the letters, so we want 26 letters, um, and then the numbers, and then maybe 20 more characters for Japanese and Chinese, and but by being too safe, there were too many flaps on the reel, and it became really hard to get that from one unit that works to 10,000 that don't fail. That is the real, and those are issues that are hard to predict in product development. Those are
mm,
what they call the long shadow of one decision. Let's
mm,
go with I think there were even there was 80 flaps or something. It's quite a while ago, but there were a lot of flaps, and if in hindsight we would have gone with 40 instead of 80 flaps, everything would have been a lot easier.
mm,
But that is in hindsight, and a more robust company has the money to do it again and then go with less flaps.
Mm.
But
yeah,
they had only the development budget for one
mm,
iteration, and yeah, then you're stuck with your first try. And if you look at the time, for example, that Apple took to get out with their first iWatch, their watch, they were really late in the market, and that must have been because they experimented with this, they experimented with that, and
Mm.
that's really what you need to account for to get out with something good if you're doing a new to the world kind of product. And yeah, that's hard to do as a startup because yeah, you need to budget for more than just one iteration. That is the big
Mm.
thing.
Mm.
Is it
Yeah.
more common than not to see companies do that? They only budget for so much and kind of put all out on that and go, this is it, this is going to be it, but then underestimate that and then find out later that they don't have the funds to. Is that quite a common thing, or?
Well, we I I've learned, and so I really warn all my clients about that, and you need to budget for two or three iterations,
Mm,
and some clients they say sorry, I want it right first time, and I'll find somebody who can. Um, Perhaps they get lucky, but perhaps they
mm,
don't. And I feel it's better to yeah, to be careful with not promising the moon. And yeah, that's the big point about startups is they only have one shot,
Mm.
and that's quite tricky.
It's a very challenging industry, the like hardware industry as well, I feel like, in other design fields, for example, like even UX design, you can develop if you can develop a fairly, good system for something and, maybe like a fairly technical background, you can launch your product online and you maybe haven't invested, that much. But you can invest a lot of money in a physical hardware product and it can be completely unsuccessful. And you'll have no, I mean, it's very expensive to start again. So I feel like in some ways, like you've got a lot more to lose, but there is obviously a lot of people in the world. So if you're successful, it's successful. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some ways to mitigate that.
Mm.
Like for example, well, there's several issues you need to get right at the same time. You need to know that the market demand is there, and that you can sort of simulate by, for example, putting it on Kickstarter, or you can just put up a website with renderings of your product, like vaporware, and this is gonna cost $129, and then run ads, and then see how many of the people that click on it actually are willing to pay that money.
Mm.
And if there's a very low percentage, then perhaps your your proposition is not your market fit is not quite there yet.
Product market
You
fit. Yeah. Mm.
mm,
can check that. So that is on the buy side. On the technical side, you need to prototype partial prototypes to make sure you can get this or that really working.
Mm.
Uh, and in plastics, yeah, you can iterate really fast with 3D printers, of course.
Yep.
Uh, we have an office in Colombia, and we have the exact same 3D printer there as we have in Taipei, so that if the guys in Colombia have come up with some design, then the because in a 3D printer you need to set up the part in the exact right angle
yeah.
so that the snaps won't break and all that. There's quite a bit of intricacies to that. So they have figured that all out, and then they just send us the final design in Taipei, and then they get. So that's kind of a transportation, a time machine or a distance
Mm.
machine, where it
Mm,
comes out of the right in one time. That's quite a nice way to do it. So partial prototyping of your key technical challenges. That's a good way to reduce risk.
Mm.
Um, and yeah,
It's funny.
pardon?
I have a friend who's worked in as industrial designer for a long time. He used to work in China, and he's been in the industry for so long. And I said to him, I was like, why wouldn't you go and develop your own products? You know, like that you've obviously got so much experience. You would almost be sure to have a successful product. He's like, I've developed enough unsuccessful products for other people that I wouldn't want to do it myself.
Yeah,
And
you. Yeah, well, we've now grown big enough that we work mostly with established firms,
mm,
and that helps a lot. Because you need to have a bit of staying power, and you need to be able to do that second iteration. Otherwise, it's really difficult to get everything right in that
mm,
first iteration.
yeah,
Uh, like the product market fit, technical challenges, material challenges, things with shipping that can go wrong. There are a lot of factors, and getting everything wrong, everything right in your very first try. That yeah, that's not that likely. Then the chances
mm,
are fairly low. But if you are able to do that second iteration or perhaps a third iteration, or normally we like in the B2B space, you can sell a first iteration of a product, and then every batch that we produce is gonna be a little bit better. The Japanese Kaizen, and just all the little, well, we could improve that and make that a tad little better, and um, it gets better and better over time.
mm,
That really then in the end creates quite a strong protection for your product, in that, yeah, it will take a competitor quite a long time to make a product that is as well developed.
mm, yeah. You've worked in the industry, in the technology industry for a long time. I was wondering what specific, things have you noticed along over the years? What trends and what other developments that have really impacted the space?
um, um, yeah, uh, I think 3D printing has made our job as designers
Mm,
easier. You can do much faster iterations on your desk. That has made the work easier. Um, yeah, when I came to Taiwan, Taiwan was like the kingdom of high tech, and then that whole industry, the manufacturing, a lot of it moved to China.
mm,
So in a big move, obviously, and yeah, a lot of people are really concerned about that, but I feel it's a bit a natural phenomena. Like after the Second World War, Japan was known for being making really shitty plasticky
mm,
toys break easily,
yep.
and then 20 years later they learned, and they learned, and for example, the Japanese auto industry, they went to the US with their prototype car, and they tried to sell it, and nobody wanted it. And then they came back the next year, and nobody wanted it. And then they came back the year after, and still nobody wanted it. But they kept improving, and they
Mm,
made a really good product, and they became world class. And everybody got really afraid of Japan, and they're buying buildings in New York, and they're taking over movie studios, and they're gonna take over the whole world. And so everybody was really scared of Japan, especially I was studying in France at that moment. And
mm,
but yeah, then they started plateauing, and yeah, they've been plateauing for the last 30 years or so. They haven't
Mm.
made much progress anymore, because then it moved to the Asian tigers, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and after they had their growth spurt, then it moved to China.
Mm.
And China
And now it's moving to India.
to India.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
possibly.
mean,
You heard about what happened with Apple? They're moving like what is it, like 80% of production to India? Something like that.
yeah, of their iPhone
Mm.
production.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I mean, that constant movement is. I feel it's a natural phenomena, and it
Mm.
gives everybody in the world a step
Mm.
at growing the country, growing their economy, and like for us, the big tariffs that are now being levied on China already under Trump 1.0, that was an issue, and quite a few of our clients said, build it ABC anywhere but China. And well, we our CTO happens to be from Colombia, and so we had already set up a design center there. And yeah, why not do final assembly there? And that's what we're doing now for the last 3 years, and that's
Mm.
going really well. So
Okay. I was wondering why you had an office in Colombia. There you go.
Mm.
Mm.
I feel it's great for they're really talented people there, but it's so far not very well known for its electronics yet, and it's a great chance for the industry in Colombia to develop in this way, thanks to Trump.
Mm.
And yeah, the way we developed that was that originally in Taiwan, the engineers were we hired really experienced engineers, and but that also meant they were kind of set in the way they work, and for example, we had a firmware engineer that wrote rock solid code, but nobody else was able to look at his code and make any modifications at it, which became a real problem when he got a problem with his eyes,
Mm.
and he had to yeah he had to leave the job and within 3 days,
Wow.
and then somebody else had to take over that code, and that it took half a year. It really took half a year to recreate all that.
Mm.
And so what we learned from that is we then started hiring recent graduates from Colombia, bring 5 of them to Taiwan for training for half a year, and then they went back to Colombia and continued to develop there.
Mm.
And next batch would come in. We have about 45 engineers there now. And so that's going really well because everybody has been trained in the same systems, like the same 130 rules for PCB layout and the same 200 rules that we have for firmware design. Like it needs to be modular, it needs to be well annotated, like this is what this does
Mm.
and this is what that module does. And because everybody is trained in the same systems and the same way of working, that means the engineers become much more. It's much easier to jump from one team to the next because often in a project you're waiting for the molds or you're waiting for 6 weeks or you're waiting for this
Mm.
uh, customer feedback, and then it's good if you can have something else for them to work on, and if you suddenly need more people on a project, that also makes it yeah, you're much more flexible that way.
Many of your projects involve custom components and pieces and parts. What are some of the biggest design pitfalls companies fall into when they don't involve suppliers early on?
Well, like um yeah, throwing over the wall, like y- y- I've seen this happen where the design firm or the company would say, yeah, like I sent them our design files and they came out with this. And that's not what we made wanted this. And but then the mold maker will say, yeah, but what you designed, it was just impossible, like physically impossible to get that kind piece of plastic out of the injection mold.
Mm,
So we helped you, and time to market is important. So we helped you very quickly to make the changes, chuck, 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 and whoop, we got a workable product already. Yeah, but you didn't consult us. And so if there's not a good interaction and rules of engagement, you get those kind of problems.
mm.
Definitely.
On your side, what are the issues that you have seen gone wrong?
I think you'd be better at answering that, Roman, because you deal with more of that product line.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you were sort of saying, the communication is obviously a bit of a challenge. Like we quite regularly
Even
will
in
send something
Australia.
to China, and it will, you know.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, what was that?
You work with manufacturers in China.
Yeah, yeah. So we work for a group. It's called the ProStar Group, and under that, there's a bunch of different brands. So we have like a pool fencing balustrading company. We also have a company that makes like locks, like polymer locks, for pool fences, polymer hinges, things like that. We also have a joinery company. We also have a like a C like company that does a bit of CNC and things like that. Electric shutters, security doors. Like we have a few different companies under the brand. So yeah, we work with like some Chinese companies for different parts of our products. Like our factories are mainly in China, and then we also have like injection molders that we work with. But yeah, as I was saying, like it's good. Like some of them are amazing at what they do, but as you're saying, like the problem is they won't necessarily ask you if you want the change. You sort of have to be very on it to make sure that you're, oh, just making sure that you're happy with this. Like, you're not gonna. This is fine for injection molding. There's no issues there because if you leave it too much in their court, quite regularly I'll find the result you'll get back. Like they'll just change it without necessarily asking you. So you have to make
Yeah,
sure that you're sort of on it and you're keeping the communication up. Yeah, that's what I
yeah,
found anyway. Yeah.
yeah. No, you need to do a good DFM review with your
Mm.
mold maker before. Yeah.
One of the major concerns for companies manufacturing in China is the IP protection. How does Titoma's approach address this issue?
Yeah, well, with a lot of factories there are like ODM, and that means that you have a company that makes toaster ovens for 20 different brands in Japan, in Brazil, everywhere. And there is a quite a high, like if you have a fantastic magic button on your toaster design, then yeah, it becomes quite interesting for that factory to have that seep into their other clients, or perhaps they even have their own brand that they sell, or they sell it via some other company to your target market. So yeah, design leakage with an ODM company is hard to avoid. Um, like yeah. So we work with our factory in China is an EMS, like Electronic Manufacturing Services, and they are strictly they make whatever, and you just give us the files for the PCB, and they have a mold maker that they work with all the times, but they don't know about connected dog feeders or RFID readers or UVC curing devices. They have never designed them. They they couldn't care less, to be honest. So
Mm.
in that kind of factory, yeah, we have never had any issue. Um,
Mm,
the other thing is we sort of grew up with them, and we're 60% of their sales. So we have a very strong relation with them, and yeah, you also need a bit of a balance of power. Um,
Mm.
if you were a really tiny customer for that factory, you're not going to get much attention. You need a right-sized
Mm.
factory. So if there is that balance of power, then they also will think twice about doing anything nasty. And we've had an excellent relationship for more than 9 years with them now, and which is yeah. You also need to be lucky. Like some friends of mine, they say, yeah, been in China for 20 years, and he's saying, well, every 2 or 3 years, the factory I'm working with, quality fade slips in, like the quality gets less and less and less. They try to substitute stuff, like for example, in a wire, a copper wire connecting a light bulb, for example. Um, he had to count the strands of copper wire inside that wire because he found out that it went down from 20 to just 11. They successively to save some money there. And
Yeah.
there was another story about a company making sneakers, sports shoes, and this was for K-Swiss, and they had a transparent logo that was glued on the side of the shoe, and the factory decided to use a cheaper glue to glue that logo on to save a couple of cents. But then it turned out that after 1.5 week, that started to decolor and progressively get worse. So in the
Mm,
beginning, you don't see anything, but so that's sort of where you have if you have a factory that's not completely honest with you and tries to substitute stuff, or they also if they really own the design, like you say, yeah, I don't know nothing about toaster ovens. I just really think that pink toaster ovens with green stripes would sell really well for my specific target market of 16-year-old girls. Um, and just I want your toaster oven, and you just put the color and my branding on it. In those cases, you can end up in sort of a hostage situation where the factory says, "Yeah, I'm very sorry, but the pink paint prices, they've gone up a lot,
Mm.
and so we need to raise the price with 20% now." And yeah, your whole product. This is the way it looks. This is what you have advertised in the brochures.
mm,
This is what you have agreed on with Walmart or some other
Mm.
retailer. You cannot suddenly change it for a different model, and you need to ship. And so some bad factories, they take advantage of that.
yeah.
So my friend said, yeah, every 2 to 3 years, I need to change factories and and then go to the next and go to the next. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pity because, like we said, the connection and really getting used to each other's way of working. I think that's a really valuable thing to have with a factory
Mm,
and build that up over time, and it gets stronger and stronger over time.
Mm.
And having to do all that again every 2 years, I wouldn't like it. But yeah, you just need to make sure that you have that balance of power. I think that's one of the keys to success there.
yeah.
Definitely.
Another thing I've noticed is, in the modern day, everything is just electronics these days. Like, I mean, obviously this is a long way back, but you think about the old days, like all the German companies, they made these amazing hardware products, that had the most amazing engineering. These days, everything's moved pretty much to electronic products. Do you think there's some cases that you've noticed where they're trying to solve a hardware problem with electronics when when it would have been more cost effective or simpler just to use a hardware solution?
Um, yeah, I can think of one. In the US, there was a product, the Juicero, and have you heard of that? It's basically they were selling bags with grapes, and you would hang them into a device, and then the device would go shut, and then slowly squeeze out all the juice out of your berries in that bag.
Mm.
They really over-designed that device, and it became, I forgot, but it was like a $200 device, and you could just have squeezed the berries by hand. I think that would have been the most cost-effective solution.
Yeah.
So yeah, or have some old style clove dryer. I think that would have worked as well.
And it even goes to, everything these days has to have an app. It has to have some sort of like internet connectivity. But there is a such thing as just a good hardware device that doesn't need that. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, adding internet connectivity and all these different things would cost a lot more money for the product, as well as it's probably going to have it's going to be more likely to fail in the future versus
Yeah,
sometimes like just a good hardware solution is going to last a lot longer. Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes it has to have an app. It's completely crazy. You just for a lot of devices, you just need an on-off button, and
Mm,
there's no. Um, it's perhaps driven by the fact that everybody, at least startups, they all want to have a recurring revenue module
mm. Yep.
business model, and that's why they need an app, and then basically you need to pay 9.99 every month just to keep your coffee
Crazy.
maker able to press that button, which yeah
We had this
has
the other day. I was at a testing facility and they had a tripod, and it was a great tripod. Like it was all had all this technology in it, but it had an app that you had to pay. Apparently, it was like $350 a year to just have this app for this tripod. And all it would let you do is just rotate the tripod using the app. And like you actually rotate the tripod without the app. Like you move it and it just like automatically tries to correct because it needs the app to work properly. And I was saying to him, I was like, it's terrible the way the world's going in some directions where everything has to have some sort of payment feature. It can't just be a good product on its own.
yeah yeah
Mm,
yeah, and with some of these products, especially if it's a startup, you risk that if one day they stop supporting that app,
mm,
you cannot press your button anymore,
Mm.
or you cannot use your coffee maker anymore. So that's a risk as well. So I agree that in
mm,
many cases it's overdone, and in other ways, like I think if you're talking Germany, you're talking cars, and there the whole industry going to electronics. You have a lot less moving parts, and less moving parts means a lot less service. And so in electronics cars in general, you have a lot less problems. And so in general, I think that's a good thing for the world.
mm. Yeah.
Mm. Something Tesla recently did in Australia is over the last few days is they've just released automatic driving, self-driving entirely into the cars. They've legalized it in Australia, but you have to pay $10,000 as an additional fee to get that, and then you have to pay an additional $150 a month, sorry, to keep that system updated in the software and the system in the background. And it's just theft. It's like you pay so much for a car and then you pay an additional and then there's more every month and you're like, oh my God. Just for a feature when you can drive
Ba-
yourself, you know?
Basically, basically, the possibility is already enabled in the
Mm,
hardware of the car, and they just have to flick a switch, and yeah. But yeah, I mean, I read an article recently that Tesla wants to get out of the making cars altogether. They just want to become more of a system
mm.
business, and
Have you seen
that.
the Tesla watch?
No, I have not seen the Tesla watch
Yeah,
yet.
it's coming out, I think, end of this year. It's really cheap as well. I think it was like 150 USD for like a smartwatch that it's like in competition with the Apple Watch. But like the way they're selling it's interesting. It's like sort of what we were talking about before. Like if you were a startup and you started and you built your own smartwatch, it would cost a fortune because you've never done it before, all these costs. Whereas Tesla they sell it so cheap because they know that you're going to use it with their car. So it's like you're selling the system, you're not selling the product. And that's why I suppose it's so hard to compete with these big businesses because they can, knock the price off knowing that you're going to pay for their other products. Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, uh, I'm not gonna buy a Tesla car because I have a watch.
Yeah.
And uh, Apple is the great ecosystem company,
Mm.
but they charge a premium
Yeah.
for everything they sell.
It's probably
Like
competition then, I suppose. Mm.
like apparently Apple on iPhones, they make they sell only about 20% of the total number of iPhones in the world, but they make 80% of the total profit or margin in the worldwide iPhone
Mm.
industry.
Wow.
So they
So,
sell at amazing margins.
mm.
Um, but what's how would a Tesla watch make you buy a car?
No, I think I'm thinking more like probably the idea would be, you buy into the watch, you buy into the idea of Tesla, like you're buying this cheaper watch, which means you're not buying the Apple Watch. And then, if like it's sort of like a bit of a mind thing as well, I suppose. Like people who have Teslas, I don't know if you've noticed this, but they just like it's like a religion. Like they love it. Like they're always telling you about how good Tesla is and how good the cars are, which I mean they probably are, to be honest. Like they are good cars, but at the same time it's like you're buying into the dream of Tesla in a way. So I suppose it's through all the products. But yeah, I mean they'll probably sell, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I see it more the other way that if you already own a Tesla, then a watch, cars and watches are a big thing of expounding your personality, showing it
Mm,
off to other
yeah.
people. So people already own a Tesla. I can see that. Um, the recent antics of uh, yeah, of Musk in politics, they have done. I think they were really bad for the Tesla brand in Europe.
Mm,
Like sales of Teslas in Europe, they have gone down by half. And in America, I hear stories about Teslas being vandalized on parking lots and people putting. I bought this car before Musk went crazy, kind of
really?
sticker car. So yeah, in that sense, a car is um, such a visible part of your persona.
Mm,
Uh, you really should be careful to keep the brand image whole and not go on private rampages like that.
mm.
Just with the Internet of Things and AI accelerating at such a rate, how do you see it, or where do you see the biggest opportunities within embedded electronics in the next 5 to 10 years?
Um, AI, yeah, AI is getting. You now also have AI implementations on boards that you can run locally without having to connect to the server. They call them edge devices. And I think there's a lot of value in that, in that a lot of people um, they don't want devices and the likes of Zuckerberg and Google to know everything about you
Mm,
and having a microphone listening in on your bedroom behavior, that kind of thing. I think that there's quite, especially in Europe, some apprehension about that.
Mm.
So if you have AI just on that device, knowing that nobody can later use that against you, I think is a great thing.
Yeah,
And so
definitely.
smaller LLM, large language models, are probably yeah, more dedicated to one specific purpose. I haven't fantasized about what a great product would be for that, but I certainly think there are good applications for that.
Mm.
But probably in the domain of very privacy sensitive areas.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah.
You've
Um,
so you
go
go.
on,
There you go.
you go. You become a key advisor in the technology space on LinkedIn, with so many followers as well. How did you develop, and how have you noticed these key benefits to your business awareness?
Um, yeah, no, LinkedIn is great. It's really nice to have discussions with other professionals on LinkedIn. It's a great discussion forum. And yeah, my background is in marketing originally, so that's also a bit my role in the company to
Mm,
be the cheerleader of the company. And as you like in the beginning when I started, you had Google Ads and they were like 15 cents a click, and that worked very nicely. But now they're like $8 or $16 per click. And so
so
yeah, we stopped that altogether, I think 2, 3 years ago. And also the whole Google search is rapidly going away. So
mm,
that all becomes AI, and people are asking AI now, what is a good design firm in Australia? And
yeah.
so the new game, like before you had all these SEO companies
Mm,
uh, optimizing your website for this and for that. Now you need to get optimized for how do I make sure AI finds me?
mm,
Mm,
And yeah, and so that is one channel, and plus LinkedIn is a good channel to have these discussions, and also yeah, to stay top of mind for people. Like if you need something electronics designed and made in Asia or in Colombia, then talk to Case. I know this guy Case, and yeah, indeed, it works that way. People
mm.
tell me, yeah, I 3 people already told me about you that I should talk to you, so I
Oh,
better
really?
try.
well,
Yeah, no,
From
it's one of
Australia.
those things. It spreads around. I feel like when you like even I have that when I have people that come on the podcast and I'll someone will ask some specific topic. Like for example, we have had people who've came on in Asia before. I think in Taiwan as well, and you know sometimes ask me like, do you know anyone in China who would be a good manufacturer for this? And I'm like, "Oh, actually, I know a couple of people for that. I'll send you the details." So like
Ah,
it does work. Like staying on LinkedIn for that reason. Like you have when you become more yeah you have a wider network, you will be the first person that people think of. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so you need to be connected, and you also uh, yeah, you need to try and stand out. And a cheap way to, or an easy way to do guerrilla marketing, so to say, is to comment on posts that are in your field and that you feel are interesting.
Hmm.
mm,
And some comments, I've had a comment that got 15,000 views. They
Hmm.
now give views on comments even, and so that's something. If there's a post that is pretty that's very interesting in your field, and you can share your own experience or your own viewpoint on that, that is a really good way to get yourself out there in the world, and that may get people to connect with you, start
mm,
discussions. That's a great way to network, and it's a much more um, efficient way to network than go to some drinks event and yeah, start talking with people and maybe in a completely unrelated business. Like
Hmm.
lawyers don't often need products designed, so in
mm.
that sense, I think it's a fantastic way to network.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, yeah, well, thank you for coming on. We've got one last question. You've obviously developed this business for a long time, and like the company Totoma has changed a lot. What's the next chapter for the business? What are you excited for in the coming years to see?
I think we're really going to expand the assembly in Colombia.
Mm,
Uh, because, like I said, a lot of people are want to diversify from China. I think China will still, for the components, remain key. So what we do now is we design around Chinese components. We do the molds in China. We go through various pilot runs in China to make really sure the product is mature. And then we ship all the parts, components, and parts, metal parts to Colombia and screw them together there. Um, that's for the mechanical parts. On the electronic side, for a product to be in Colombia, you needed to be to have the electronic assembly, like the components being placed on the PCB. That needs to be done there, so that's what we do there as well. But yeah, that's a very automated process. But yeah,
yeah,
that's been going well, and I think we're expanding rapidly there, and we already rented a place right next to our design office, and that is ultimately the dream for designers to really design next to where the production is happening, so
mm,
that you
definitely.
can interactive, make quick adjustments.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really exciting. I mean, it's great as well that you're sort of in a way bringing up these, less developed countries and giving them a chance to, become skilled labor and, skilled at what they do. And yeah, it's awesome to see the different countries around the world starting to become more technologically advanced and, get it good at manufacturing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great development. So I think it's good for everybody to distribute manufacturing and um, not just do everything in China.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for coming on today, Case. I really appreciated having a chat and yeah, looking forward to more chats in the future.
Will do. Okay, my
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Good talking with you guys.
You
Cheers.
Thank you,
too.
mate. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Bye.